Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Luke, and this is my co-host, Justin, of the Almost Great podcast. Justin, what are we going to talk about today?
Today, Luke, we're going to talk about why a team that had Eli Manning and two of the best pass rushers in the NFL figured out how to somehow not make the playoffs. We are talking about the 2010 New York Giants on today's episode of apparently NPR. What are we doing here?
Well, we're going to be our own NPR now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
NPR doesn't have as much funding as it used to, so we can step in and fill the gap. We can do it. We got it.
Really gracious of us. That's really gracious of us.
It is. We're very nice, and they'll thank us later for it.
So how are we doing, man?
We're doing swell. Now, how we're doing, I think, is the wrong question. The proper question is when are we doing? Because we're going back to 2010 when we do this. All right. What was 2010 like? Do you remember what it was like? You were alive back then.
I do. Yeah, you were but a youngling. I'm feeling older and older by the day. So I would have been a high school freshman, which is sad to think about. But yeah, 2010, we were still, so Facebook was certainly, we had Facebook and MySpace and all that. So like social media was a thing. I don't know that anyone had coined the term social media yet. And
whatever you had, you used on a computer. It wasn't
correct.
Quite on your phone. You did Facebook on a freaking computer.
Right.
Barely coming out of MySpace.
Yeah, like it was very rare. The cameras on your phones were
bad.
Were so bad.
So terrible.
Yeah, so you didn't really have the social media had not yet taken over the world, I guess is my best answer to that. 2010 was still a simple time in that way, where us high schoolers thought it was really crazy that we could text each other in class, and
let alone watch a movie on your phone. I can't even believe it. Watch a movie on your phone, possibly too.
Oh yeah. That was an insane thought at the time. It was crazy when your phone like had the ability to play Tetris on it. You know, that it was a different time. It was a different time.
By the way, guys, I'm going to have a pinned comment and a little spot in the description where you can skip over this section and go right to the sports that we promised we were going to talk about. So don't worry. You can do that if you want. So don't click away yet or close this tab just yet. In 2010,
if you're a buzzkill and you don't like this part, I mean, come on.
If you suck, if you're a terrible person, then you'll do that. In movies in 2010, real quickly, you had Iron Man 2, Inception, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, Alice in Wonderland. Remember that one? That movie?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, the Tim Burton one.
Yeah. Oof. That he found a way to fit Johnny Depp into that one, too?
He did.
Right?
Yeah, he's the Mad Hatter.
Yeah.
Which I actually kind of liked him in that role. I'm sure other people disagree. The Twilight Saga Eclipse. Back when the Twilight movies were coming out.
Which one? Do we know which one that is?
Is that
that's the
third one? That's the third one. Yes.
Okay.
How to Train Your Dragon. Toy Story 3. Shrek Forever After. The most recent Shrek movie until the one that's about to come out, I think, this year. Despicable Me. Tangled. Shutter Island. Diver Wimpy Kid. That first movie. Hot Tub Time Machine. Clash of the Titans. Remember the ad campaign for that?
Oh, my.
Talk about an advertised movie.
Wow. I forgot about that. Wow.
Release the Kraken was just in everyone's vernacular for a short time.
It was super advertised, and it was fine, if I remember correctly.
It was okay.
The time, 2010, it was a weird time where we were starting to try to do what like Infinity War and the later Avengers movies did, where it's all a CGI movie. They were trying to do that in 2010, and we weren't quite there yet.
We were almost there.
We were almost there.
If you spent enough money, you could get something really good.
But you ended up with some movies like, I think, Clash of the Titans that I think if it came out 4 or 5 years later, could have done just a little bit better.
Sure.
You know?
And remember, that was back when Sam Worthington was a thing, because he was an Avatar the year before.
Oh,
and he'd be in Call of Duty Black Ops. He was having his moments. He was in the Call of Duty Black Ops story mode as the main character later that year, too. So that was like the peak of his career.
Yeah. Not someone you hear about now.
No, not as much. He's in like really bad Netflix movies all the time, though. That's where he's went.
I think I think the most important thing though to bring up about this is what an animated movie year. Oh, I did not realize that Toy Story 3, Despicable Me, and Tangled are all the same year.
And the last Shrek movie. And How to Train Your Dragon. I was kind of shocked going through that.
That's an
how many there were.
all-time animated movie year.
Also, you had The Expendables, that first movie.
Oh, okay.
You had Tron Legacy. You had The Social Network, one of my favorites, and The Town. You know The Town.
Oh, love The Town.
That's a great movie. Boston Bank Robbers with Ben Affleck and Jeremy Renner.
Only Affleck could get them to let him shoot a shootout in Fenway Park.
Right. Yeah.
So awesome at the end of that movie. Yes, The Town is one of those that did not get enough love when it came out.
That's a genuinely underrated movie because it was liked a lot at the time, and then just no one ever brought it up ever again until like years ago.
Yeah.
So that's a little weird to me because it is a quality motion picture. TV shows. The first season of The Walking Dead.
Oh boy.
The first season of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. The last season of Lost. The last season of 24, the last season of Scrubs, and the last season of Law and Order all that year.
Oh, wow. Wait. Oh, Law and Order's back now. But yes, for a time, it was like Law and Order wrapped up and then they brought it back.
After 20 seasons.
Yeah. It's interesting, kind of an end of an era. Shows like Scrubs and 24 were very much staples of kind of the last great generation of the network shows, still dominated the conversation and are still what people were watching. You know, shows like 24 very much still moved the needle, right? That was still, Kiefer Sutherland was a household
back in that day. Jack Bauer, he was the John Wick of the time. Oh, Jack Bauer will get it done.
Jack Bauer was the coolest, exactly. So that was still a thing. And then you have first seasons of things like The Walking Dead that AMC had that run where The Walking Dead and Mad Men and Breaking Bad were all on their channel at the same time, where suddenly
running the show.
Yeah, we're like, where are these cable networks coming from? And then it was like 5 years later, everyone's going to Netflix. But interesting sort of
the interesting intermediary stage in the early 2010s where there was some coexistence, but it was just the old guard of network shows that were dominating the culture are ending now.
Yeah.
They're falling away. This is an obscure one, but for people who were alive at the time and paid attention to network TV, The Event. Do you remember The Event?
Oh, good Lord.
That was, again, advertised like you would not fathom on a scale that the brain couldn't really register.
I want to say that got an after Super Bowl premiere.
No, right? It was September.
Oh,
it premiered September of that year.
Okay, all right. Maybe they got an episode after the Super Bowl.
It could have.
I want to say that they really pushed because that when you're trying to push a show, that's what you do, right? You do the post Super Bowl slot.
Sure.
I could be totally wrong. I feel like I remember that though. That was that show was pushed. Oh my gosh, it was
unbelievable. The Event starting in 10 seconds now. I mean, just every bit of it. The event, and. We watched a couple episodes and we weren't that into it. I actually watched like 2/3 of the show a couple years ago.
Did you really?
It's actually pretty good. It's actually a pretty good show. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's really when network TV absolutely went to crap in later years. That show is much better in comparison.
Gotcha.
Like, indescribably.
Yeah, I think I only made it a couple episodes.
We only made it 2 episodes in. I wanted to watch more, but I was like 8 at the time and my voice didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
That's part of growing up.
Yeah, you can take that to your counselor.
I will. And he will listen very carefully. Video games that year, you had Red Dead Redemption back when Rockstar made video games. You had Mass Effect 2, you had Halo Reach, you had StarCraft 2, Wings of Liberty. You'll remember me, our mutual brother, and my dad were very into that one.
Our mutual brother as opposed to our unmutual brother?
Right, yeah. Families can be complicated, Justin. Call of Duty Black Ops, that was a big deal that year, and Heavy Rain for the PS3. So
Heavy Rain. Oh, man. Yeah, that was a big one. That's one of those that when anyone goes back and does like best video games of whatever time period, if you're like a video game person, which I do not claim to be, by the way,
right.
I think you fall into that category. I do not claim to be one of those people.
Sure, I'm closer.
If you are one of those people, Heavy Rain is always at the top of your list. It's not a game I've played, but I see that.
Right. It's a game I've played and I love, but it's extremely flawed and hasn't aged very well in a number of ways. Some things about it are very good, but I could waste so much time talking about it, but I won't because it's not the topic of this podcast.
It's not a Heavy Rain podcast. Okay.
I could waste hours of your time and whoever wants to listen, but I'm not going to do that right now because I profess to be a good person. Songs that year. We could do more songs, but we're just going to keep it short. You got Airplanes with B.O.B. featuring Haley Williams. Back when B.O.B. was having a big old moment.
B.O.B. had a moment. B.O.B.
When B.O. Flat Earth B was having his moment.
Yeah, before he was a flat earther.
Yeah.
B.O.B. His debut album, The Adventures of Bobby Ray,
Yeah.
Is still one of my favorite hip hop albums.
The album cover has him like on a skateboard, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he definitely had a moment. He got some great collabs, right? So he does Nothing on You with Bruno Mars, and that was Bruno Mars's breakout hit too.
That's when we started hearing about him.
Right. He was in his, sort of songwriting producing duo that was huge. Like Bruno Mars was a guy before he was a singer, right, in the industry. But that was his breakout single as well. And then B.O.B. also does Airplanes with Haley Williams and also does Magic with Rivers Cuomo of Weezer. Does all three of those, gets Eminem on the album to do an Airplanes Part 2, has just a massive debut album, never follows it up. Like the second album's not good. He has one single off of it. It really disappointed me. But for a year or two, though, that guy was flying as high as about anybody in the world of hip hop. And a lot of it has to do with that song, which is one of my favorites.
Yeah, that he was a name, to say the least.
Yeah.
At that time. We're going back to 2010. Just a Dream by Nelly. Do you remember Nelly?
Oh, yeah. Well, so Nelly, yeah, that was like a comeback song for Nelly. Yeah. Nelly was early 2000s.
That's how people can know that he's older than I am. Is someone I'm like, oh, I know this song by him, and then you say, well, that's actually a comeback song of his from when he was bigger before.
I know you love it when I do that. But early 2000s. So Nelly was a big part of sort of the Atlanta Dirty South hip hop that really took over in the early 2000s. Nelly, Ludacris sort of were at the forefront of that. And so he had a comeback in 2010 with Just a Dream, where he's kind of singing and kind of rapping. And he sort of parlayed the fact that had some country riffs in it to getting on that remix of the Florida Georgia Line song.
Oh, okay.
2014 or 15, Cruise, the song that was absolutely everywhere. Got on that song, and so I'm sure he's made plenty of money off of that. So that was a little career comeback for old Nelly.
Good for him. Good for him. Sail by AWOL Nation. That was overplayed to hell and back. In retrospectively, I think it's a decent song, but like it was contaminating the radio seemingly everywhere you went.
Yeah.
You had also Misery by Maroon 5, back when they actually had guitars in their songs too. I like that one. I
always think of that one. That's the last one before
Moves Like Jagger and that whole era.
Jagger, where basically they teamed up with Benny Blanco. Benny Blanco wrote him a bunch of stuff, and they went and
made him some dough, made him some money,
made him some fat bank. This was their last kind of run as a band.
Yep.
With that song, which, hey, I can't blame them. Like, they got way more popular when they went a different direction. But
and it's hard to say that I would reject more money if it was offered to me. That's a tough thing. Remember this one. So Love the Way You Lie, Eminem featuring Rihanna.
Yes. Eminem and Rihanna, two great collabs.
I didn't know they had a second one. Okay.
Monster. So it's not 2010, but Eminem and Rihanna do Monster in 2014.
Okay.
Which then gets played in every Seahawks game because it's got a Russell Wilson line in it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And then this is another sign of the time here. Like a G6, Far East Movement featuring the Cataracts and the Dev. That, at the time, sounded like a darker, edgier song than it does now. Now it's like pop candy. But at the time, I remember like, ooh, that's on the radio. This whole vibe and aura of the song is just like had this dirtiness to it. But it doesn't now.
That song that is my freshman year. Like that song, it's my freshman year of high school. We thought that I think LMFAO came out either 2009 or 2010. LMFAO was doing stuff too. Like that sound was because LMFAO was like Sexy and I Know It, right?
Yeah.
Like that sound, everyone was like, this is so crazy that people are doing stuff that sounds like this. And within 2 years, we moved on.
Totally. Katy Perry, she had Firework, Teenage Dream, and California Girls with Snoop Dogg.
That whole album, the Teenage Dream album, was absolutely massive.
Max Martin wrote a fair number of songs on that album. I'm pretty sure he did. And I could be wrong, but I would still in a figurative sense be right if I were to say that.
I think that's just a Max Martin album.
I think that just is a Max Martin album. The guy's a money printer. He's like Edward Scissorhands.
Do we need you to did you need to do a 20 seconds on Max Martin really quick for our audience?
No. We're running long as it is already. As much as I respect the guy, as much as he is Edward Scissorhands, except his hands are money printers. That's what Max Martin is. And also, I had to mention Snoop Dogg because Snoop Dogg, especially in 2024,
American treasure,
every aspect of the American culture, and he was still able to do that back then. So
yes,
good for Mr. Dogg. Now we can get into what the podcast is actually about. So for those who skipped the timestamp, here you are now. You're a coward and we don't respect you. Season background. So we can look at 2005 through 2012 as back in the day when the Giants were good, which sounds like quite the far cry compared to what we've seen recently.
Yeah.
But they were actually had a string of very solid teams with their share of disappointments and underperformances in there to obscure things a little bit. For about those 8 years, though, they were a solid football team.
I would say more than solid. They were one of the good, the NFL's. They weren't on the Steelers level of a model franchise, but the idea, you can even go back before 2005, Luke. They had some rough years in the early 2000s, but you can even date them back to the Phil Simms years of the late 80s and early 90s, and Jeff Hostetler.
They were up there with the Niners, battling back and forth for NFC supremacy.
So the idea was that then when they landed Eli Manning, in 2000 they went to the Super Bowl, right, with Kerry Collins.
Yeah, people always forget that the Ravens destroyed them that game, but they made it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So this was one of the NFL's model franchises, and they had this kind of second peak from 2005 to 2012 because we got Eli Manning as the quarterback, Tom Coughlin's the coach, and he provided a high level of stability. And we can get into the pros and cons of both of those people, but those guys provided a run for about 8 years there where, again, they're one of those teams, if they weren't making the playoffs, it was kind of like, okay, what's happening here?
Yeah, what's going on here? What's the matter? Or if the Steelers under Mike Tomlin had a losing season, they'd be like, ooh, whoa, what happened here? If that were to ever happen.
Well, that's the thing. There's in every sort of, the NFL cycles through these things, but there's always a couple teams that are those teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not
I would
talking
say the
about
Packers are now.
Yes.
Like the Green Bay Packers.
Where it's like, okay, wait, what happened? Why are these guys,
who got hurt?
Not having a year? Yes, right. That's exactly right. And the Giants were in that zone for a solid time period. In 2010, they're coming off that 2009 season where they started 5-0. They finished 8-8. 2008, they had slid down the stretch as well, right? They had
they come off winning the Super Bowl earlier that calendar year. 2008 was a great calendar year to be a Giants fan. You win that Super Bowl, you start off 11-1, but before that game, that 11th win, Plaxico Burress accidentally shoots himself at a nightclub, fumbling, reaching for his gun that he was not supposed to have. He didn't have a permit for in New York. And then they slide after that. You're
being far too kind in how you're describing that situation.
Well, Plaxico's had enough bad stuff happen. I won't salt
Plaxico Burress shot himself in the foot in a nightclub with his gun that he was not allowed to have. He goes, oh, shoot, my illegal gun is falling around in my pants.
And then he goes, literally, oh, shoot.
I need to grab this illegal gun before it falls out of my pants. Oh no, I shot myself in the foot. And now my team season goes up in flames.
And then they go one and done, lose to their division rivals, the Eagles, who they had swept in the regular season. And in a fun bit of trivia, they lose 23-11, which is the only NFL game to ever have that score.
Scorigami.
So 2009 they go 5-0. They tank down the stretch, finish 8-8. Here they are in 2010, trying to get back to the playoffs.
Yeah, and there was a narrative at the time, and this kind of gets us into who Tom Coughlin is as a coach, is that there was a narrative at the time that, okay, 2008 they stumbled down the stretch, 2009 they stumbled down the stretch. Is this a result of Tom Coughlin's coaching style? Because Tom Coughlin still is known as one of the great disciplinarians of NFL head coaches. Like, obviously, we're not talking like 50s, 60s military style, but he infamously turned all the clocks early in the Giants facility. And then if you weren't 5 minutes, or sometimes it was 15 minutes early to meetings, you were fined, right? He was very much about, yeah, that was his thing. He was all about the structure and the discipline and all of that. He basically ran Tiki Barber out of town because Tiki Barber hated him so much.
Okay. That's why he left.
Yeah. So Coughlin and the offensive coordinator, Kevin Gilbride, Tiki Barber basically hated them so much that he retired. And so you had to get with Coughlin's system or you were gone. Now, it brought a lot of discipline to a team that needed it, and he won 2 Super Bowls eventually with it. But there was a narrative going into this season that discipline style, the hard practicing, the early hours, the sort of all of that rigor was the reason that they were crumbling in December, is because they were worn down by the time they got to that part of the year. It doesn't make much sense. Like many media narratives, it doesn't actually make a lot of sense, because in 2007, they won the Super Bowl by getting hot in December.
And beating teams they had no business beating.
Exactly.
And catching absolute fire.
Yeah. So it really is, again, it's one of those things that crumbles up once you look at it, but it's very convenient at the time. So that's
especially at a glance when you look at it. You're like, oh, 2008 they collapsed, 2009 they collapsed. That seems like a trend or a pattern to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that was very much the narrative, the trend going into the season was sort of, is this going to happen to them again?
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of did.
In a way, it did. Not as cinematic a collapse down the stretch, but because they're on this show, we know they didn't make the playoffs. So in a way, it's another disappointment.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, as sad as I am to do it, I'm also worried about you if you didn't know that's what we were going to be talking about. So the coaching staff, we already mentioned Kevin Gilbride, the offensive coordinator. He's one of Coughlin's guys who worked with him in Jacksonville. Perry Fewell, Fewell, Perry Fewell, which just has a total mind thud of a name unless you follow football a little more closely. He was another Coughlin guy from Jacksonville. He started as defensive coordinator just this year.
Yeah. And he, again, another Coughlin guy, been with the Bills before that. And so this was one of those situations where they got rid of who had kind of taken them in 2007. They'd had that great defensive line that basically carried them to the Super Bowl.
Michael Strahan was still on that team, right?
In 2007, not anymore.
Right, yes.
Yeah, but in 2007, Strahan was the kind of the leader on that team, but they still have an incredible defensive line going into this 2010 season. So I don't know if it's Fowl, however you want to pronounce it.
Mr. Ewell from To Kill a Mockingbird.
Mr. Ewell, exactly. The reason I know the name is actually because he's now the NFL's like VP of officiating. Because he shockingly did not spend that long with the Giants, but he was their guy this season. Again, Coughlin surrounded himself with guys that have been with him a long time, because you need to be a certain kind of coach, certain kind of guy to be able to ride with the way that Coughlin does things.
A permutation of human being, a very specific kind that is able to stick with him. So that's who sticks around.
The one other thing I wanted to bring up is that the Giants have a very unique ownership situation. Because two families own the team. So the Mara family has owned the Giants for forever. And John Mara is the current generation of Giant that owns them. And if you recognize that name, yes, you're correct. He's got the two, I don't think they're his daughters. I believe they're his nieces.
Niece, I don't know, something like that. Kate Mara and Rooney Mara.
Kate Mara and Rooney Mara, the actresses are, that's all the same family. Lots of money there. But I want to say the 80s, it might have been earlier than that. The Maras sold half the team to the Tisch family. So you've got John Mara and Steve Tisch are the co-owners of the team. And at this time, they own the team 50-50. Now they own it 45-45-10 with another group. But they own it 50-50, which means that the two guys, Tisch and Mara, have to agree on everything, which is how you get some of the strange decisions, maybe not right now, but going forward or in the past with the Giants, is because the two guys have to agree on everything.
That is interesting. It's not just one family. It's not like the Seahawks. They got the Allens. It's just Allen who owns the team, right?
Yeah. And so that's a rare setup for any professional sports organization to have two guys in charge. So yeah, Mara's the president and Tish is the chairman, but they both have to get along. So it's interesting. You can probably Google and look up more of that situation. I don't know if I would encourage you to Google Steve Tish's name just right now.
Not unless don't have kids around when you do. Make sure they're not looking over your shoulder. Rule number 1.
Yeah, we'll let you figure that out for yourself. But his position is as chairman may be changing soon.
It might be subject to some scrutiny at the moment. This year too, another big thing about the Giants: new stadium. It opened early in April 2010, earlier this year. Now would be called MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, but at the time it was called New Meadowlands Stadium. So that old Giant stadium they had from 1976 through 2009 is no more, and they're playing in frickin' Jersey now, along with the Jets. Very New York thing to do. It cost $1.6 billion, and this is another sign of getting old, by the way. When you see a number from that time and it says $2.3 billion adjusted for inflation, you're like, oh God, what's happening to me? So yeah, brand new stadium, brand new defensive coordinator. In the draft that year, they pick up in the first round Jason Pierre-Paul, which some might know as the fireworks injury guy who has that club for a right hand.
And the guy that blew off 3 of his fingers.
Yep. That was the 4th of July for 2015, one he would never forget. Second round, you had Linval Joseph at defensive tackle. So not a bad draft from what I can see.
No, and 2 guys that very much were part of the D-line was a good defensive line in 2010, didn't quite come together and be exactly what they needed them to be, but then did come together in 2011 and were insane, right? Mm-hmm. And part of the reason that they win that Super Bowl again. So that's the other thing worth pointing out is in the 7th round, they select Matt Dodge, punter out of East Carolina. So they spend a draft pick on a punter because
that doesn't happen often.
Yeah, it's just not something that happens on a regular basis.
Similar vein as the Raiders drafting a kicker in the first round, Matt Janikowski, right?
Right. You see like 1 or 2 punters get drafted every year, like not a lot. 7th round pick on a punter. And it's because Jeff Fiegels, who'd been their punter for like 20 years, and they gave him a new contract in the offseason, and then he retired a month later.
Dang.
Yeah.
Okay. No, grab the money and run.
Yeah, exactly. So they draft a punter. So that's a big deal. I mean, to be a punter who's drafted, not many punters get drafted. So
a little bit of pressure on you
later. Some foreshadowing.
Some development of a future scenario. So the way the season roughly went is they had a 1-2 start and then a series of streaks after that where they were hot and cold and eventually ending in a 10-6 record.
I guess run through this quickly. Just a few of the things that are noteworthy from this season are...
Yeah, before we go into any more detail, we can broadly outline a couple things if we want.
I mean, they start this season again. They start at their new stadium. They beat the Panthers. They get absolutely the schnikey kicked out of them by Peyton and the Colts. Manning's bro.
Last year, Peyton Manning was with that Colts team.
Right, because he had the neck thing, so then he didn't play the next year, right? That was oh gosh. Who was the guy that filled the poor soul that had to...
no, it wasn't Curtis Painter, was it?
Yes, it was. It was Curtis Painter.
Yeah.
Yeah, Curtis Painter had to play QB for the Colts all season. Oh, gosh, that was...
And they went a thundering, courageous 2-14 that year.
Yeah, and then drafted Andrew Luck. Oh, gosh, I forgot about that.
So they bounced back okay from it, but that Colts team that they just got utterly pillaged by the way, as much as we talk about Peyton versus Eli, and for a while it was kind of funny that Eli had 2 Super Bowl rings, Peyton Manning only had 1, but Peyton Manning had a slew of seasons that were way better than Eli. Whenever Peyton played Eli, he won all 3 times. 2006, 2010, 2013, Peyton Manning won all 3 times. So he's got that over his brother, and I'm sure that comes up at Thanksgiving when they eat together. So they drop that Colts game, and then they just get keistered by the Titans randomly. Vince Young, crappy Titans team.
Yeah, this was the Vince Young era. of the Titans. They were still trying that. Man, Vince Young's up there. By the way, Vince Young's up there, and guys, like, I would have loved to have seen Vince Young get to be a rookie in 2013 or 14 when everyone was running the college offenses, when everyone was running the read option.
He could have done more if he had that at his disposal.
Yeah. Instead of taking all these running QBs and trying to figure out how to make them all Manning brothers, basically.
Yeah,
Then you start to see the team that you expect to see, right? They beat the Bears, they beat the Texans, they beat the Lions in an ugly, ugly game. They beat the Cowboys and the Seahawks. They go on this run and then lose a couple that we can get into later. A loss to the Cowboys and a loss to the Eagles. Beat the Jags, beat the Redskins. Sorry, Commanders.
Yeah. Don't dead name them. No dead naming here. Sorry. We apologize to our audience.
Yes. Viewer discretion is advised. Beat the Vikings, and then things fall apart at the end of the season with losses to Philly and to Green Bay, where either one of those would have put them in the playoffs. So then a win over the Commanders in the last week of the season didn't mean anything. They lose on the tiebreaker, and as 10-6 team, they don't make the playoffs. And that they end up the next year, right, being a Super Bowl winner on a similar crazy run to the 2007 team. But the narrative, what everyone was talking about during that time, this was an absolute disaster. Literally.
Right. Yeah. They are wondering for the third straight year now, where they have teams that display a lot of competence, but no playoff wins to show for it. Especially after they come off winning a Super Bowl in 2007. You're like, why is this not culminating in something better?
Yeah.
What is going on here? Why is there this air of disappointment that keeps showing up?
And we can get into that, Luke.
Yes, we can. Yeah, let's
first we can talk about what's good with this team. Do you want to do that?
They're good at a lot of things. When I was going through the research notes of this, in a way, I was almost bored. I'm like, okay, they're good at this. They're good at that. They don't seem to have a lot of obvious strong weaknesses. In some ways, they're just like completely okay. Like they were 5-3 at home, 5-3 on the road. When it came to penalties they committed, they were a 16th, dead middle. They were 16th in penalty yardage. So nothing snappy there. But their offense was very good. They were top 10, 7th in scoring and 5th in yards. They were very good at the passing game and good at the running game too. They could do both. They had Ahmad Bradshaw and Brandon Jacobs with very good seasons. They had Mario Manningham. They had Steve Smith. They had that one guy whose name escapes me, but I think was actually the reading receiver. So that's my bad. Hakeem Nicks had 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. Mario Manning had 900 for 9.
Very important. Very important. Really quick. Different Steve Smith.
Not the one who played for the Panthers. Not Steve Smith Sr., as it's always noted on Wikipedia and whatnot. Another Steve Smith, a different one.
Yeah.
And Eli Manning that year threw for 4,000 yards, 31 touchdowns, which is quite good. But this is where we get into a little bit of the downside here. Eli Manning had a bit of a late 70s, early 80s quarterback stat line where he had like 31 touchdowns and 25 interceptions thrown on there too.
Yeah. And we can get into that in a second about where that all comes from, but a lot of that comes from the style of offense that Kevin Gilbride was running, as well as who Eli's always been as a quarterback. But I think what's interesting about this team in terms of what they did well, you had 2 offensive linemen who were all pros, right? And Sean O'Hara and Chris Snee. And you had a 2-headed running back duo in Ahmad Bradshaw and Brandon Jacobs that was very interesting. The back and forth all year about who the quote starter should be. We were getting into the era of the timeshare. By 2010, like backfield by committee was certainly, I mean, teams were doing that, but it was not as prevalent as it even would be 5 or 6 years later, right? They were still sort of this idea, who's your number one? Who's your bell cow? Who's your 25 carry guy?
That bleed over from the 2000s. We had like Larry Johnson and Priest Holmes, LaDainian Tomlinson, Sean Alexander just getting hundreds of thousands of carries a year, piling up absurd numbers of rushing yards, right?
Yes.
Who's your guy who could do that?
Who's your guy? Exactly. And so that was sort of
Tiki Barber being one of those from
the Giants had just come back from having one of those guys. So that was sort of the idea going into the season, was that we need to find which one of those guys is going to be the guy. Ahmad Bradshaw starts for most of the season. And honestly, I think they would have been better off just sticking with him, to be honest. Brandon Jacobs was the most tantalizing of running back guys. Guy was huge, 6'4",
Mm.
like 240 pounds.
He's a
right?
tight end.
Yeah, exactly. An absolute giant who Deion Sanders referred to as the tiptoe burglar because even though he was 6'4", like 240 pounds, he would not hit the hole hard. He wouldn't lower the shoulder. Like he was not the absolutely impossible to tackle person that he should be sometimes. Now, you'd have flashes here and there, and you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. And then half the time you're like, we should not be giving this guy the ball ever. He's a nothing.
He was too soft. He was softer than his size would imply.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so you had this back and forth all year with Bradshaw and Jacobs, but they still had a good ground game. And then on the outside, you had two of your prototypical outside boundary receivers. These are guys, not guys that are running, that are out of the slot. These are not guys that are running drags over the middle. Hakeem Nicks and Mario Manningham are running go routes down the sideline. They're running slants. They're running curls, out routes, right? These guys are staying outside the numbers. Big-bodied receivers that Manning can throw big, deep go balls to off of play action because that's what he wants to do.
The most iconic example being Super Bowl 46 against the Patriots, where in the clutch in one of those Giants touchdown drives, there's that 33-yard bomb to Mario Manningham where he just gets the feet down right by the sideline.
Yeah, and one of the really fun things about looking back at this for me was I had forgotten because those guys didn't go on to have really long careers.
No, they're not like those super consistent fantasy owner favorites, right?
Yeah.
Not like an Antonio Brown or a Julio Jones kind of guy.
Yes, Hakeem Nicks probably ruined fantasy seasons for a couple of years after this because he had a very good year here for the Giants and then really did not do much in his career afterwards, right? This was kind of
pulling a Victor Cruz, if anything. Like not as severe as that, but Victor Cruz had a couple of just amazing years and then evaporated.
Right. It's like that. This season in 2010, he has 79 catches, 11 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards. He did the same thing, and that was in 13 games, right?
Not even a full season.
Not even a full season. He has a great year in 2011 again, and then absolutely falls off a cliff. There's some injuries, but there's also just some. He's just. I don't know if he loses a step. It's kind of a mystery to me what happens to him. But so you have that with Nicks, where for a couple of years there, you're like, this guy's a stud, and then you suddenly lose him. And then you've got Manningham, where a similar thing. This is his peak season. He has 60 catches for 944 and 9 touchdowns. He plays in 16 games. They say he starts in 8. I mean, really, he plays in 16 games. It says only 16 game season. He played 12 the next year, only catches 39 balls. He goes to San Francisco for 2 years where he catches a combined 50 passes and then he's out.
Total flash in the pan.
Yeah, so in a way, even though they win the Super Bowl the next year, this is a wasted year for the Giants because you got these two guys in Nicks and Manningham who both pretty much peak at the same time, even though they seem like guys that would be future absolute stars in the league because they're both in only their third or fourth season, having great years, and that you really get nothing out of them after that. It's one of the more kind of odd sets of careers that those two guys had.
And they didn't capitalize enough on that little short peak that both of those receivers had.
Yeah, so it's just an interesting combination. You look at even the running backs, right? Bradshaw runs for 1,200 and 8 touchdowns, right? And catches for another 300 yards, 47 catches. Like he has a massive year this year. Again,
great year.
He's at the peak of his career is this season. He has a couple more good seasons for the Giants and then fades into obscurity in Indianapolis. But again, we're talking about guys on offense who were at the peaks of their careers, and yet they weren't able to make this happen. And I think that's part of what makes looking into this so interesting.
Right. Yeah, because the whole point of this is that these are good teams, but they have some problems, which we're about to get into.
So, yeah, we got into our so why wasn't this team great?
Why?
Right?
Yes.
And what's your first one for us, Luke?
The first one and the easy one, the ice cold take, the kind of answer to who's the best band of all time, the Beatles, like the very obvious sort of answer you could give, is the turnovers. The turnovers. You watch this team play. You watch highlights or you bother to watch the full games like some of us try to. We'll put the playlist in the description of all the totally legally uploaded full games. When you watch them, you pull your hair out. And we're not even like Giants fans. My attitude towards the Giants is completely a game-by-game, case-by-case basis. I don't feel very strongly either way towards the Giants, other than they did a public service by beating the Patriots in the Super Bowl both times. We will always be grateful for that. But when you're watching these games, I'm sorry, what?
No, I said that's but the only time we'll feel grateful for a New York team doing anything, right?
Exactly. It will be the only time. And presumably we have long lifespans still left, but I'm confident in saying it'll be the only time. When you watch these games, you're just like, stop turning the ball over. Eli, stop throwing interceptions. Stop fumbling. They led the NFL that year in turnovers. Full stop, period. They led the league in fumbles lost. This at the worst times, or maybe not even just necessarily the worst time, just another random time. Oh, there's another turnover. Eli Manning, oh, there's his 25th pick of the year. Like we're still playing football in the 70s or 80s. It's killing them. It really hurts. I'm going to date this video substantially when I say this. It's like watching the Seahawks for most of the year this year, where you're just watching Sam Darnold, just like, stop. This is the fourth time today. Stop getting picked off. You're really not helping. That's a big one.
Yeah, and you look at the scores of some of these games, and I think that's where it doesn't always show up in the box score, because when you look at these scores, you see some of these games, you're like, well, the defense was giving up 25 or 30 points. You're like, so what was the offense supposed to do? You know, there was the Cowboys 33-20, or the game in Week 15 they lose to the Eagles 38-31. But you don't realize how many of those points are because of the offense.
Right. You notice something is amiss when you see, okay, they're 17th in scoring defense. That's not great, but 7th in yards. So when it came to the actual yards given up by the Giants, it's not that bad. It's actually pretty good, but their points is way worse because the offense is putting the defense in bad situations, giving the other team really good field position. They're not helping them out that much.
No, they're not helping them out at all. They're being negative.
Which is also too bad, because the Giants literally led the league also in fumbles recovered on defense and in takeaways. So it's the most extreme polar opposite. The defense is making other teams' offenses turn the ball over all the time, and then the offense is either giving it right back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which just makes for their games are all insane. They're
all insane. They're all a mess. They're just like, there's so many turnovers happening, and then throw in some failed fourth down conversions too. Like nobody's punting, and everyone's finding different ways to give the ball away.
That's a good. I like that, actually. I want to use that to describe just a game, or a style of play. Nobody's punting and everybody's losing. Everybody's losing the ball.
Everybody's giving it away somehow in some new fashion or some different creative way.
Yeah. So that, I mean, the turnovers is what jumped out to me the most too. I mean, we have other things that we can look at, but that is just brutal to be doing it that often. All right,
here broad numbers on that before you get into it. So they turned the ball over a grand total of 42 times that year, which for those who are good at math or who aren't, that's 2.5 times a game.
That's
and
insane.
Then 17 fumbles lost. So every game, on average, you're losing a fumble. You can count on it. You can set your watch to it, or you can set it to the sunrise each morning. Like, okay, another Giants game, another fumble that we're gonna lose.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous. That's so many turnovers. Those, again, they led the league in turnovers, right? You're on a level of really, really bad football, and you're still able to win 10 games.
You're still 10-6.
The achievement here is actually that they won 10 games with how often they were turning the ball over.
Right.
And this is where I get into sort of the incongruence, I guess is the word you can use, between Tom Coughlin and the sort of disciplinarian style, which generally means that you are a very don't turn the ball over. We don't get penalties. We don't turn the ball over. Like those sort of things kind of usually go together, right?
Yep.
But then the incongruence is his offensive coordinator that follows him everywhere is his whole style, again, it comes from the run and shoot. He called plays for the Oilers back in the early 90s
with Warren Moon throwing the crap out of the ball.
Exactly. And that style, particularly at that time, because this is run and shoot is like the predecessor to the spread, right? Where both of them are very focused on throwing the football. The run and shoot is much more downfield focused, however. And so you end up with more turnovers, right? Your spread and your you take it as far as your air raid, right? Your Mike Leach style is we're viewing short passes like the running game. So there is much more. We're going to spread the team out. If we want to get somebody the ball in space, you work the quick game and you can get people the ball in space. The run and shoot is much more. We got our guys on the outside. We're going to run them deep. We've got a tight end that we want to work over the middle of the field and maybe a slot receiver like Steve Smith. But it's less focused on that short. That'd be more of a West Coast style passing game, right? They're looking to stretch the ball deep, and that plays right against this idea of not turning the ball over, right? So those two things don't necessarily mesh. That's why I find it interesting that Gilbride was Coughlin's offensive coordinator for so long.
No, that is an odd incompatibility there that was allowed to happen. I guess Coughlin was obviously not happy he was turning the ball over, but he was willing to have that philosophy be carried out.
Yeah.
So that is highly intriguing, I would say. Another interesting thing, just to kind of point towards the strength of this team, and again, as to the miraculous nature of them going 10-6, despite coughing the ball up all the time. LOL, that was a Tom Coughlin pun, just in case people couldn't tell. Is
it a good pun if you have to say the pun?
Well, it was a little less obvious. I don't know if it was on people's brain, but I wanted to take credit for it. I had to make sure of it. So they were number 5 in sacks that year. That's that great defensive line doing what they can despite getting put in these terrible field position situations with 46, so almost 3 a game. Their offensive line, so both lines were good on this team. Their offensive line was right there at the bottom of the league with Peyton Manning's Colts in sacks that they allowed.
Okay.
So Eli Manning was doing pretty good with time to throw and still just dealing the ball away.
That's actually very interesting because you brought up the Seahawks earlier, so we can talk about that. Like the line often for a quarterback who can make a lot of throws but turns the ball over a ton is that they don't do well with pressure, right? Sam Darnold, Ryan Fitzpatrick, people said this about him all the time, right? Is that if you gave him time, he'd dice you up, and if there was pressure, he'd throw you the ball. And that was the narrative on Sam Darnold. We don't need to make this a Sam Darnold discussion.
No, and we won't.
But what's interesting is when you're throwing the other team the ball and you're not under pressure, again, then what else is going on? And that's where it's sort of a product of the way that both of those guys, both the offensive coordinator, Gilbride, and how Eli want to play, right? And that's why ultimately, I might be sort of stepping on one of our points that we want to make, but ultimately a lot of this, I think, falls on Eli Manning's shoulders because just as they had these 2 Super Bowl runs where they got hot, right? And maybe we can have this discussion now, like, all the seasons they fell short where you're like, look at everything that's on this team. Why are they not able to do better? Why are they 10-6, right? Is because of the inconsistency that comes with how much he turns the ball over because of how he wants to play and his refusal to change that as his career went on. Because by the time we're playing in 2010, he's been in the league 6-7 years, right? This isn't some, young guy thing.
He's been at it a while. Yeah.
Right. And still his insistence on this is how I want to play as a quarterback leads to the roller coasters and the valleys because you can't be consistent when you're turning the ball over that much. You just can't. And I think that very much plays against this idea that because he won 2 Super Bowls, he's on the level of all the other quarterbacks that have won 2 Super Bowls in terms of, you want to talk about Hall of Fame or greats or whatever term you want to use. I think that works against him.
It's a complication when it comes to getting to that threshold because on paper, he's got the 2 Super Bowl wins. The guy never got hurt. This is what always blew my mind. Same thing with Phillip Rivers. We're just looking at it and he's just starting 800 million games in a row. Like he's fine. He's somehow found a way to not get hurt year after year, year after year, year after year. So that's another thing in his column. He's had a couple of very strong passing seasons. The problem is in 2014 and 15, they didn't make the playoffs in those years. But years where you look at those and go, okay, those are darn good stat lines, especially when you had Odell Beckham Jr. to throw to around 2015. He's been in the playoffs a couple more times as well, and he had that over Peyton Manning for a number of years where he had won those Super Bowl rings.
Yeah, I would make one point on the 2014, 2015. I feel like my grandpa could have had a great passing season in 20. I think everyone was having a great passing season in
yes, yeah. Forever, my brain is sculpted by growing up with that era of football where there was just so much throwing that there was a lot of passing. Receivers were piling up absurd amounts of yards. Like in 2015, Julio Jones and Antonio Brown each caught for 1,800 yards. Right. And I remember I just kind of like thought, okay, that's pretty good. But that's actually insane. That's top 5 all-time regular seasons to have as a receiver. But that year, you had it happen twice. So you had Megatron in 2012 with almost 2,000 yards that he caught for, right?
Yeah, right. You're skewed forever. I know that drill because I grew up during the roid era for baseball. Where right.
Where guys heading 260, you're like, could be better.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. And you're like, oh, he only hit 280 with his 40 homers and 120 RBIs. I think we can move on from him. That was the roid era. It was crazy, and so you have to recalibrate. And so in the same way that this era right around now, but especially the mid 2010s, the passing was insane. Really post lockout, the lockout in 2011, and then the offense just shoots up after that.
So yeah, he has a couple years of that nature, and then he has other years that are not as consistent, right? He wasn't like Peyton Manning, where as much as you can joke about him choking in the playoffs, he put up a lot of good-looking regular seasons. A lot of great stat lines. He won league MVP 5 times. Like he had very nice seasons to look at. And Eli Manning just doesn't produce at that level. So it's not fair to compare him to somebody who's one of the all-time greats, of course. But Eli Manning's way more bumpier when you see that he has more of, as I said before, those 70s or 80s stat lines where the amount of touchdowns is almost equal to the amount of picks that he's throwing.
Yeah. And I just don't. I mean, this conversation was happening while he was playing, and it's happening later, and it's happening in his Hall of Fame candidacy and all of that. If he doesn't go on those 2 runs, obviously, then he was a very good quarterback, and that's about the extent of it. But I think even if he goes on those runs, if his name's not Eli Manning, I don't think that we talk about him the same way.
That too. Yeah, he's a Manning. And that goes a certain way. That has a way of wedging into people's minds when they bring him into the conversation.
Yeah, if his name was Andy Dalton, would we be talking about him the same way, right? I don't know. But that's just one of the things that I think about with that. So ultimately, I fall on the side of, especially since I got to look more closely at it in preparing for this, that he really not only do I think that he's not in that top tier of quarterbacks, right? Especially he's playing at a time where Phillip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger and Drew Brees and Peyton Manning and Tom Brady are all playing.
Aaron Rodgers wins the Super Bowl this year.
Aaron Rodgers is playing, right? There might even be other guys I'm forgetting and leaving out, but really that stretch of guys.
Matt Castle had a good year with the Chiefs this year too. The last good year he never have, but Matt Castle was also good this year.
You've got that group of guys, and he's not in that group. And therefore, not only that, but I think you can actually attribute some of the Giants' struggles to him. And I think that's where the distinction really lies with the great QBs, the all-time greats, is even if they had down seasons, it's because they weren't able to make up for other issues on their team, right? And in the case of Eli Manning, I think that he was the reason for some of their issues in some of their seasons, particularly this one in 2010. And that's where I think if that's ever the case, and you can't be considered on that level.
Sure. Yeah, it seems in a way open and shut when it comes to the Hall of Fame discussion, but then kind of like when we had the Kurt Warner discussion, these are complications that come up that make the answer a lot less obvious.
Yeah.
So that's one of the weaknesses, at least. There's a few others that you can point to as reasons for why they didn't make the playoffs and why they are in the same dust bin as the 2-14 Panthers this year, as in they didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think I can take 2 of them here at once.
Go ahead, bring them on. Yeah,
the special teams, particularly Matt Dodge, And you can combine that with the Philadelphia Eagles. And so we haven't brought it up yet, but the new miracle at the Meadowlands, the miracle at the new Meadowlands.
The elephant in the room, especially for any Giants fan watching.
Yes.
The obvious thing to bring up, the obligatory thing to bring up,
is the infamous Week 15 game against Philly, where they lead
31-10 with 8 minutes to go.
Yeah, with 7 whatever minutes left, Philly scores twice. The Giants, with some just mind-boggling late game clock management, they throw with under 3 minutes left. Eli throws an incompletion, which you just cannot do, which stops the clock. Philly goes down the field again. The Giants have the ball again, can't do anything. And with 14 seconds left, they go to punt. They punt it right to Deshaun Jackson, who does the absolutely just beautifully cinematic drop the punt. Then he picks it back up, bobs and weaves, takes it to the house, game-winning punt return touchdown. It's an incredible highlight. It's an awful call by Joe Buck.
So, but I was going to bring that up too.
It's
Deshaun Jackson gets a block. Are you kidding? Deshaun Jackson still not in. Now in for the touchdown. No flags. Unbelievable. Like, he actually, good announcing, escapes his mouth like for a couple seconds. And he's like, oh, I can't be doing that. And he stops. He like just pauses and just cocks it up in the last few seconds. It's terrible. It's a shame.
It really is. It's an all-time highlight, and he absolutely botches it. 2 years in a row, because this is, or not 2 years in a row, but back in 2007, he absolutely botches the David Tyree.
The helmet catch. Yeah.
Botches the helmet
on
catch.
his feet. Lofts it out downfield. It is caught by Tyree. Great. I'm just thrilled to the bones. I like that Troy Aikman kind of makes up for it after that, where he's just like, oh my God, goes up and catches it like a basketball. Like he's trying to put some life into this. This is a total digression sidebar, but this pertains to the Eagles. In the 2002 NFC Championship game, there's a kickoff return against the Buccaneers that goes like 75 yards to get to the 25-yard line. And this is back in the day where full games on YouTube were really hard to find. Mm-hmm. So I just perused through this one at random, and I just happened to stumble across perhaps the most iconically bad Joe Buck call, where it's just like, Mitchell, down at the 25. Like that's what it is. Opening the NFC Championship game, 75-yard kickoff return. The crowd is, the Eagles are at home. The crowd is just going bat nuts crazy. And that's what he has to come up with. So Eagles fans should be mad at Joe Buck. They should.
Yeah. Joe Buck clearly hates their team. We don't need to make this a whole announcing podcast.
We already did, but we don't have to.
Joe Buck has gotten a lot better to the point that I now think
true.
that he is an above passable play-by-play guy. And if he's going to call the Super Bowl, I'm not going to be too upset about it. Like, it's okay. I'll live. Joe Buck
couldn't live back then.
Joe Buck of the 2000s was a bad play-by-play guy, and I will always stand by that take. Nepo baby, who got the head job at Fox that he didn't deserve, and for about 15 years wasn't good enough for it. And I will always stand by that take.
George Costanza, like in that early Seinfeld episode where he talks about wanting to be one of those commentators that makes comments like that.
Yeah.
And then Jerry reminds him that, well, those are for people who are in the business. It's like, and then George is like, well, that's not very fair.
It's not very fair.
I think Jason Alexander / George Costanza would have been better than Joe Buck, at least during those 10, 15 years. I think so.
I think you're probably right. It would have at least been more interesting. But to get back.
My fault, by the way, but I don't care. Back to the new Meadowlands.
The Eagles that touchdown is basically why the Giants don't make the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
They're losing that game to Philly. Philly wins the division on the tiebreaker because they swept the head-to-head. The next week, the Giants have to go to Green Bay. They lose to a red-hot Green Bay team that ended up winning the Super Bowl.
God himself could not have stopped Aaron Rodgers from getting that Super Bowl that year.
Correct. And so then it didn't matter that they won in Week 17 because Green Bay beat Chicago and Philly had the tiebreaker, so out they go. And so that was the play, and blowing that 31-10 lead is what did it. What is the funniest part of this whole thing, however, Luke, is we have the intersection of special teams and the Eagles is Tom Coughlin with the ultimate I take all the blame, but also it's not my fault. which I love when people do this. He gets up at the press conference afterwards and he goes, "That last play was all on me. I told our punter to punt it out of bounds and he didn't." I'm like, how is that? How
what am I supposed to take away from that? Tom, what am I supposed to take from that? It sure sounds like the punter messed that up.
How is that all on you? Oh, hey, it's all on me, guys. Oh, by the way, it's actually all on the punter. Let me throw him right under the bus. Well, he ends up saying that Dodge, because the snap's high on the punt. So he ends up saying that Dodge didn't feel like he could get it off in time, so he had to give a quick kick. And so then he kicked it into the middle. But then he still goes like, "But you can't kick it to that guy in that situation." Okay, well then how you're saying it's not your fault, right? I don't. So
well, he knows he can't blame the punter, but
let me blame the
punter for the bad thing that happened, though.
I love it when coaches do that. It's so funny to me every time. You see it the most in the, not now, but in the college recruiting context back in the day when you weren't supposed to wink, wink, pay the players.
Right.
And so every time that a team would get caught, and it's always some poor schmuck assistant coach that was the one that was actually giving the guy the money because the coach told him to. And it'd always be like, "I take full responsibility. This is all on me. Also, here's our fall guy, and it's actually his fault. I take full responsibility.
Here's the guy who will get fired.
Yes, I take full responsibility, and it's not my fault." And it's hilarious every time that coaches do that. And Tom Coughlin does a master class in it after this play. But those two things intersect to be arguably, this is just a really good team that lost some crazy games, including 2 to the Eagles that they should have won. They lose 127-17. They lose that game.
They were ahead in the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Of that game, yeah.
Correct. And Michael Vick does it to him both times. Kevin Cobb was supposed to be their quarterback. They traded away Donovan McNabb to the Commanders. Bring in Kevin Cobb's going to be their starter.
It looks like his last name is spelled Kolb, by the way, Kolb, but they say Cobb. That's how you're supposed to say it, apparently.
Correct. Thank you for that, Luke.
Yeah, a $12 million contract, by the way. For 1 year.
2010. Yeah,
which is a big deal. Yeah, quarterbacks are not paid like that.
But then Vic, this is Vic. Remember, Vic's been to prison and come back. And so he's just a backup in Philly, fills in as they're losing to the Lions, and which is hilarious that both these teams had tight games with the Lions, who stink. And he fills in and then takes them to the playoffs. And so Michael Vick and Deshaun Jackson basically combined to knock them out of the playoffs. And so, yeah, those two things come together. That whole ending of that game was an absolute disaster. Before all that happens, there's a surprise onside kick that the Eagles recover. Just an absolutely, like, you want to look at how to blow a game. The Giants do it just wonderfully.
That game as the DiMaggio line of comebacks that are possible. Like, if the team is down 21 with 8 minutes to go, they can still technically come back. It is still possible for them to come back from it. I always think of that game every time.
There you go. So I guess that's certainly when, why weren't they great? Why wasn't this a playoff team? You can just say the punter stunk because Jeff Feek retired, and the Eagles had their number. And it might not be more complicated than that.
The Eagles had their number for a couple years there, where in 2008, they knocked them out of the playoffs. The Eagles do. That 12-4 Giants team goes one and done. That's how the season ends. In 2009, the Eagles sweep them. In 2010, the Eagles sweep them. So you got to be, as a Giants fan, just pissed off at these guys. You're just like, stop being you. Stop being the Eagles. Stop annoying me.
Stop annoying me.
You're being quite the thorn in our side right now. We don't appreciate it.
Yeah. It might be how the Rams feel right now.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Now, that's how rivalries go. That's what makes it so good.
Yeah.
I remember for a moment kind of feeling bad for Matt Dodge because he gave up on football.
Did he really?
Yeah. In 2011, he went to some other team during training camp. It was noticed by some people that he wasn't totally feeling it. And somebody asked him, are you with it, son? Basically was what he told him. He's like, not really.
Wow.
So he wouldn't play football again. Now, I remember feeling bad for him, and then I saw a picture of his wife, and I'm like, oh, screw this guy. He's doing just fine. I don't feel bad for him anymore. So it ended right there. But for a moment, I did feel bad about him and how his career went.
Okay, I'll go ahead and still feel bad for him for both of us. Does that sound good?
Okay, you can do that. That's fine.
No, because that's horrible. Because he got so much crap after that game.
Yeah.
And again, Tom Coughlin really took all the blame. Yeah.
Sure.
But the other interesting thing here, though, is that again, 10-6 team, and both them and the Buccaneers were 10-6 this year
in the NFC. Yeah,
and they both missed the playoffs, which is another interesting part of this.
Yeah, misery loves company. This is our misery loves company segment where you're a good team, you missed the playoffs. You're not the only one that year who suffered from it, though. The Buccaneers went 10-6, and that Bucs team is sort of the impetus as to what got me interested into this concept in the first place of good teams missing the playoffs. Is the Seahawks went 7-9, the Bucs went 10-6 and missed out. I'm like, how the heck does that happen? That is just wild to me. And so I'm like, okay, this isn't the only year that a 10-6 team has missed the playoffs, and then on it goes. And then you also had the 9-7 Chargers in the AFC miss the playoffs that year. They had a point differential of plus 119. They had the number one total offense and number one total defense. This SB Nation, the YouTube channel is called Secret Base, but SB Nation is how I always know them, did a video on why they're the best team to ever miss the playoffs in the NFL. So those two teams that year also missed out. So don't worry, Giants fans. They had a rough go of it too. You're not the only one who suffered from this. But it is funny to me, though, that the year where we know when the Giants played the Seahawks that year, they just destroyed them 41-7. Like it was a blowout. It was probably the peak of the Giants season. They were fresh off a bye week. They were 6-2. It was a 5-game winning streak they had going. They turned the Seahawks to mincemeat. When the Buccaneers, who also went 10-6 and missed the playoffs that year, played the Seahawks, they ran them into the ground 38-15. They destroyed them. So if you're these two teams, you're just like, what are we supposed to do? We have a record 3 games better than the Seahawks. When we play them, we destroy them. Yet they're in the playoffs and we're not because they won their division.
Because that was the year they played the Rams. Sunday Night Football, last game of the season. Winner goes to the playoffs.
Yep.
And of course, I remember we won that game. It was awesome.
Yeah,
it was a bad football game. It was really
16-6 final score.
16-6. Hasselbeck was hurt. He had basically a broken hand. So Charlie Whitehurst played quarterback
against Sam Bradford.
It was really bad. And so they eke out this win. And so, yeah, these teams are sitting at home like, are you kidding me right now? This team's in the playoffs. And then that team went and beat the Saints at home.
The defending Super Bowl champs. Defending Super Bowl champs with that iconic Marshawn Lynch Beastquake. So that I think does complicate the angry narrative a little bit, where it's like, okay, the 7-9 Seahawks pull off an upset of iconic proportions like that. That changes the calculation.
And we never would have gotten the Beastquake.
No. And I think that history is right as it should be, I think. So there's that segment. There's a couple things we got to look over. We got some awards to give out, don't we?
Yes, we do. The Mark McGwire Award that we give out for the person who had the best season in a losing, all for naught effort.
Yep, all in vain.
All in vain. I give it to O.C. Umenyiora for being as their defensive end, second team All-Pro. Led this team. The D line was great.
He had 11.5 sacks. Very good year.
He had 11.5 sacks, which is a great season, and he had a great career. He's someone who was part of that team. Him and Strahan on the two defensive ends was what took him to the Super Bowl and beat New England the first time. Right? He had 13 sacks on that team that beat New England the first time around when they led the league with 53 sacks. And then 2010, he was the defensive player of the month that year. And so 11.5 sacks. It was a fantastic season. So he deserves a ton of credit for that. He was one of those guys. He had a run there. Again, another guy who had arguably a peak season, or at least close to it this year, and then never really got back to that same level afterwards. So the Giants had quite a few of those guys this year.
The other person I bring up as a candidate here for the Mark McGwire Award would be Ahmad Bradshaw. We've mentioned a couple guys who had really good years, but were just so unfortunate that they had to be this year that they were good at. Ahmad Bradshaw was a very handy part of that offense with his 1,200 yards and also being able to catch the ball really well, too. I think that was also a similar wasted effort where these two guys are just playing their butts off and they're just like, what gives? We don't manage to get to the postseason. I'm sure at some point, maybe I don't know the headset of a football team where they're like, Eli, could you stop throwing the ball away? could you not do that? We're doing our darndest here. Could you do it a little less, please?
Now, I will say, didn't they also lead the league in fumbles?
That too. Yeah. You can always spread the blame around. This is true.
Yes. Tom Coughlin will go ahead and take the blame for him.
Oh, he will actually. Yes, he will take the blame on paper, in name only. So, ugliest win. Now, this Jags team was okay. They went 8-8 that year. They were 6-4 when they played them, but it was a game the Giants were trying to lose. The Jags were up 17-6 at the half and got the ball to start the next half. The Jags scored on each of their first 3 drives. In the first quarter, they ran for 90 yards, ran for 207 on the game. And the run game was just kicking their ass. The Giants.
This was peak. They had Maurice Jones-Drew and Fred Taylor.
I love those names. Those are such good throwbacks.
Yes. They make me very happy. And this is a great 1-2 punch they had.
Oh, yeah. They could run the ball super well. Especially in 2007, they were a fun team to watch. In that Patriots game, the divisional round, it was fun to see them do their darndest to try to pull off the upset. Mm-hmm. That was a string of very, very fun teams. 32-year-old David Garrard, his last year, quarterback for the Jags, and he had been with them since 2002. Right, this is an old dude. Ran for a touchdown that game.
He didn't just run for a TD, Luke. He had back-to-back plays on that drive that were exactly the same, where he rolls right and then makes a defensive end miss and then cuts it back and breaks a couple more tackles. He gets a first down with one, and then the next time he gets the touchdown. And I'm watching these, and I'm like, it really is. The Giants are trying to lose this game because David does the same thing on 2 plays in a row to put him in front. And they're allowing 32-year-old David Garrard to run for touchdown.
And ironically, the Giants actually had no turnovers that game. They didn't turn the ball over once.
Which I think was the only time that this year.
I feel like it was. Yeah, let me double check that because we don't want to misinform our audience. Yeah, that was the only game that whole year they didn't turn the ball over.
They've still managed to almost lose. The Jags got all the way down to the 30-yard line. They
got to the 29 inside 2 minutes to go, trying to snatch this win away from the Giants. And then finally that D-line stepped up after just getting torched all day long by the run game. They sacked Garrard 3 times, strip him, ball game.
The most embarrassing loss, however, on the flip side of that.
The easy one, the ice cold take, the Citizen Kane best movie of all time take would be to say it's that Eagles loss because it's so iconic. But I think the real one is the loss to the Cowboys that year. Now, they played twice, but it was the second time they played them when they were at home and 12.5-point favorites against a 1-7 Cowboys team that had just fired their coach, Wade Phillips, and had Jason Garrett step in for him.
The clapper.
Oh, yeah, he was good at that. Jerry Jones let him do that. He was allowed to do that. And they lose 33-20. They lose by double digits, by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. And I think... Ooh, I need to check this now. Yeah. Tony Romo was still out, right? He broke his clavicle in the first game. And so John Kitna is lighting him up.
Yes, that's right. Oh, my God. Yeah, it's John freaking Kitna, quarterback.
So this Giants D gives 3 touchdown passes to John Kitna.
327 yards. He just becomes a stud. He puts up like an Alabama quarterback stat line where he's 13 of 22 for like 327 and 3 touchdowns.
Chucking bombs to Des Bryant.
Woo, yeah. That's an embarrassment, especially against a division rival like the Cowboys. That's one where you hope you forget that one. You hope if you drink enough, you just don't remember that game. Now, on the roster, we got a few candidates here. Best name. Osi Umenyiora. That's an easy one in terms of just like most distinct or most cool name. Matthias Kiwanuka, also on that team. And then this guy, I remember this guy's name since I was like 9 years old or whatever. Chase Blackburn. Like that's a main character. That's a protagonist name in a piece of fiction. Chase Blackburn. I didn't even care that whether he was good or not, or how significant a player he was. I just thought that's a great name. I love that guy.
Chase Blackburn is the slightly angsty 14 to 15-year-old teen who's the lead in your adventure dystopian novel.
Chase Blackburn. Yeah. Arguably a kid that is more annoying or snottier than the coolness of his name. Like, he doesn't deserve a name that cool, but yet that's what he has. But we'll give it to OC because of how well he did this year. I think he deserves the nod to have the best name on this team by the Almost Great podcast panel.
Well done. Well done.
Let's go.
Well done.
Some random crap we found out. Yeah, worst blowout, 45-17. The Packers just lit them on fire. Longest game
in the game that they had to win.
They really would have liked to have that win because the Packers. This is what's crazy about the NFC. The Packers, the Eagles, the Buccaneers, and the Giants all went 10-6.
Yeah,
all in the NFC. It is just hilarious. So games against these teams, like the Eagles twice or the Packers, you would like to have one of those wins, but they lost all three of them.
Yep.
Those are games you wish you had back. Longest game that year, 3 hours, 28 minutes. That was that first win they had where Tony Romo got hurt against the Cowboys, and they won 41-35. The shortest game was that ugly one against the Jags, 2 hours, 52 minutes. They wanted that game to be over, and for good reason. They wanted to get over it quickly. Okay, now, do you think we're ready to get to this segment?
What else is on, Luke?
What else is on? Now, if you're a New Yorker, you have a lot of other teams to look at least when it comes to professional sports. With college sports, I don't know. I never get a straight answer from anybody as to like what colleges they root for over in the East Coast. You get these very bizarre ansers.
Yeah, because there's so many colleges.
And there's so many pro teams that they can subsist on in the meantime. So this is a very weird year too, because this is the last time the Jets were actually in the playoffs. This is the last year the Jets were ever in it.
The Jets were better than the Giants. It was bizarre.
They went 11-5. Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez, and they had that great defense.
This was the second, because they did it back-to-back years, right? Yeah. They went to the AFC Championship game.
2010.
Yeah.
So the Jets got that over the Giants that year. They were 11-5, made it to the AFC Championship, lost to the Steelers. In another random piece of trivia, when it comes to AFC Championships, that one was the last one that didn't have either the Patriots or the Chiefs in it.
Oh, no kidding?
Yeah, we go back 15 years. You go to every AFC Championship after that, it's got the Patriots or it's got the Chiefs in it.
Oh, that's insane.
Even this year, you had the Patriots beat the Broncos.
Yeah.
Most recently. You can't escape these teams.
Wild. Oh, that's great. Love that. Love that. That's awesome.
So this is going through the crates of history. Now, in 2015, and we will do an episode on this, the Jets went 10-6 and missed the playoffs with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Chris Ivory, Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, Todd Bowles.
Yeah, that's the season Fitzpatrick threw like 3 picks in the second half
of their last quarter against the Bills.
Yeah. I remember that because I really wanted because I liked Ryan Fitzpatrick. Mm-hmm. I wanted that team to make the playoffs, and it was that crap is what got. If I remember correctly, the Steelers got in because of that, right?
Because of that, yes. Yeah. The Steelers made it to the playoffs because the Jets, on a 5-game winning streak, couldn't beat the 7-8 Bills in that game.
Yeah.
And the life of a Jets fan. Our heart goes out to all of you, every single one. In that year, too, you have the Yankees, who go 95-67. They go to the ALCS. So if you're of that Yankees-Giants persuasion, which I always group things that way. If you're Yankees, you're probably also a Giants fan. If you're a Jets fan, you're probably a Mets fan. There's like weird mutant hybrids that are in between, whose existence cannot be explained, but sometimes they mix, but I tend to sort it that way.
Me too. And I have honestly no idea if that's correct. That's
I know, it could be very wrong. Yes. Yeah. But there is cross-pollination that happens, though.
That could be completely off. I have no clue, but that is how I group them in my mind as well.
Mm-hmm. That's how I sort it.
I think it's like because Giants have always been in the NFL, same with the Yankees are like the staple team, and then the Mets came around in the 60s the same way that the Jets came around in the 60s. So, that's how it works in my mind, at least.
Sure.
But if a New Yorker wants to correct us in the comments,
don't hesitate to do so, please. Yeah. Let us know. It's good for engagement. It helps the algorithm. Bash us in that classic New York fashion. So the Mets that year did not do as well, 79 and 83. In July, they were 47 and 37. They were passingly okay, but they didn't finish that way. So that's a swing and a miss. New York Knicks that year, 29 and 53 from the regular season. They go 42 and 40, but that's not until 2011. They make it to the first round, they lose. So nothing newsworthy there. The New York Rangers hockey, they missed the 2010 postseason. The next year, though, is, once you're done, you're wrapped up with the NFL season, they do make it to the 2011 playoffs. They make it to the second round. So that's not bad. That's okay. The New York Islanders, they missed the playoffs in both years when they're playing in 2010. So nothing to report there.
It almost makes you sympathetic for a New York sports fan.
Almost.
Can't actually be sympathetic.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe a little more sympathy than like a Boston sports fan.
Yeah. I think in my lifetime, it went from New York to Boston being the like, we hate you.
We hate you. Fan. And if you never win anything ever again, it'd be too soon.
Yeah.
Now, college, we did our best here. Again, New Yorkers, you can just blast us to pieces if you want. For those New Yorkers who very passionately root for Syracuse college sports, like their football team in particular, they went 8-5 and won the Pinstripe Bowl that year. So you got to hand it to them. And they still had Jim Boeheim as their coach with their basketball program, so they were good and they were in the mix. They went 30-5 earlier that year in 2010, made it to the Sweet 16. In the 2011 March Madness playoffs, they went 27-8, made it to the round of 32. So they were definitely a good diversion to be watching at this time.
That was right in the Fab Melo era, I believe. No, 2012. I'm sorry. Fab Melo would have been right after this. Okay.
And then, Rutgers. Don't forget Rutgers. The Scarlet Knights football team went 4-8. Okay, that's not very good. And basketball, they went 15-17 both years. Nothing to report there. The Buffalo Bulls, not the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bulls that year went 2-10 in football. That's not good. In basketball, they go 18-12 and then 20-14, making it to not the NIT, the CIT, to the third round.
Yes, the third level tournament, the college invitational tournament,
where all the good teams really play.
Yeah.
And there were no Brooklyn Nets at this time. They were still in New Jersey. They wouldn't move until 2012.
Well, I mean, because a team that plays its games in New Jersey could never count as a New York team.
That would never happen. That would literally never happen. And as far as I know, the existence of MetLife Stadium is a lie. It's actually located in upstate New York, probably near Albany. That's actually where they play.
So I guess that gets us to kind of what's our final answer here, right? Why weren't they great? What's the mission, the investigative mission that we're on, Luke?
There's got to be one answer. There's got to be one answer because we gave like a bunch of different ones, but it's way too complicated. And we got to come up with one. That there has to be one answer, right?
Yeah, and my answer is simply it's a combination of turnovers and Eli Manning. Eli Manning did not have a great season. Turned the ball over far too much. 25 interceptions means that you can't play consistent football, and too many turnovers in games where it really mattered. The Green Bay game where they got blown out was actually close in the third quarter until he kept turning the ball over. Mm-hmm. And so that's my answer, is that you had a really good team who had a freak season in terms of the turnovers, and it's both how this team was designed and how Eli Manning wanted to play, and you ended up falling short.
The answer I would give is the NFL playoff structure, because what we've known since 2020, and I'm sure there's some Gen Alpha sports fans who can make me feel very old and saying there used to only be 12 teams in the playoffs instead of 14.
I don't want to hear that. I don't want
to either. That's like hearing from kids when you bring up Lord of the Rings to them. They're like, oh, the Hobbit movies? You're just like, oh, no. The NFL playoff structure, it was only 6 teams per conference. If they had 7, because the Giants actually had the strength of victory tiebreaker over the Buccaneers that year, if you had 7 teams making it to the playoffs in each conference, the Giants would have gotten in if we just had that format. Or, this is a little more radical, if you oriented who got into the playoffs not by who won their division, which is not how North America does sports, but if you were to do it a different way, just purely on record, then the Seahawks would have gotten lost in the pile, and then the Giants would get in at 10-6 instead of 7-9. So if it was just set up differently, this wouldn't be at all an episode. We wouldn't be able to talk about them. They'd be, okay, you went 10-6, you're 4 above 500, you had a double-digit win season, into the playoffs you go.
And we can talk about this kind of from the perspective of, once again, we had a season, right, where an 8-9 team, in this case it was Carolina, got into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right. And teams who were above 500 got left out. And every year that happens, it pops up and it's like, why are we letting the division champions in? And it's like, because that's the way the schedule works. Like the whole point. I'm very much pro the division champions should get in, because that's the entire the schedule. It's an imbalanced schedule because you have 32 teams. Everyone plays in the division. Everyone plays the same schedule.
This isn't soccer over in Europe where you play every team twice, once home, once away. We can't do that.
Yeah. And so when you have an imbalanced schedule, you can't compare teams who have played different schedules if you don't have to. And that's the whole point of having divisions set up that way. Is the idea is the teams inside the division are playing at least close to the same schedule. Now there's a bit of the variance there with the whole one game where the first from one division plays the first from another division. So there still is variance, but the idea is that we're all playing basically the same schedule. So one of us will move on. So, in an example of Seattle and the Giants in this particular year, an extreme case would be, well, yeah, all the teams in the NFC West were bad because the schedule that all those teams played was so hard.
Sure.
It wasn't actually the case, but theoretically, that could be the argument.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I get that. We did spend a lot of time on research, and I'm not paying for that StatHead subscription for nothing. So we could rattle off just a little bit of trivia, leave people feeling, if you're a Giants fan, on a little bit of a good note here. The Bears game, they sacked Jay Cutler 10 times in that win, 17-3.
I think it was 9 in the first half.
Yeah, they just talk about get after their ass defense, right?
Yeah,
held them to 0 for 13 on third down, and only allowed 6 first downs all day long. That's what this defense could do. The Bears went 11-5 to the NFC Championship that year. They were not a bad team. Clearly, their defense was better than their offense, but that's what the Giants were capable of doing. I thought that was at least somewhat noteworthy. In that 31-7, that first win against the Redskins, the Giants ran for 197 yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. They could turn on the offense when they needed to. And as much as we justifiably are harping on Eli Manning's turnovers, he threw for 4,000 yards and 31 touchdowns. He did well. He put up a good season by that metric, but there's the other side of the ledger that you have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Eli Manning was bad, but again, I think there's a difference between, he wasn't trying to overcome other deficiencies of his team. He was creating the problems, and that's where I come from on that.
And he was bad in an aspect of the game that happens to matter a lot. It happens to be very consequential.
Yes.
You can be good at other things, but that has the function of negating what you were doing before. You offset the good things you're doing. And that's a pain. That kind of sucks.
Yeah.
At the same time, they led the league in plays per drive on defense and time per drive on defense, keeping it pretty short whenever the ball was foisted upon them. Whenever the defense had to suddenly get back on the field so soon, they usually did the best they could. That's pretty much all I got. Any other last thoughts?
No, I think we have thoroughly covered this team and now swept them back into the dustbin of history where they were before.
Yep, right there with the 2010 Panthers, who went 2-14 and drafted Cam Newton the next year.
There you go. The Giants did not get to do that. They just went and won the Super Bowl instead.
I'll take it. That'll work. That would work, I think. So thanks for watching, everybody. Please like this video. Please comment. Please subscribe. And we mostly promise to have another episode after this in a somewhat timely fashion. You probably won't have to wait another 3 months for it.
We're going to do better, we promise.
We mostly promise. All right. As I learned from Halo, don't make a girl a promise if you know you can't keep it. So we'll try to be good about it, though. And in the meantime, just stay tuned. We appreciate it if you got to the end of this video. Thank you.